Welcome to City Talk, where we try to figure out the answer to the question, what do these people who walk in and out of the city county building do all day? There's a guy named Justin Cooper. He works for the Department of Innovation and Performance. We'll ask him. Justin, welcome to City Talk.
Hey, thanks for having me.
So what do you do all day?
So I'm a graphic designer. I do graphics for prints, some images for web, and anything else that the city might need.
Yes, and as I understand it, you just designed some new pages for the orientation book, the pamphlet that people get when they first get hired.
Yeah, so there's a lot of different pages and links that you get when you first get hired to the city. And I came up with a solution to organize that, make it a little easier to use for the new hires.
Oh, really? What was a little more difficult than it used to be, and how did you simplify it?
It was just basically just a Excel spreadsheet of links, and I went through and color coded it, did some icons, separated it into different categories, and made it an interactive PDF that people could use.
And have they been using it already?
Yeah, it's still in the review process, but it should go out here soon.
So it seems to be working. Well, that's got to be great. You've only been with the city for 2 months and you're already inventing something, so to speak.
Yeah, trying to just jump in and get my hands on all sorts of different projects.
Now you went to school for computer graphics and then also worked in the private sector for a time, correct?
Yeah. I started going to college for graphic communications, and then I worked my way around to some advertising companies and some small businesses that need marketing and graphic communications.
How would you compare your experience in the private sector to the one in the public sector now?
It's definitely a different pace, but I think working in the city is great. I get to interact with a bunch of different departments, and I know that my work is going to go to the citizens of Pittsburgh, and that's a great feeling every day.
I think some people wonder what government is like in general, and other work in that environment. Has it met with your expectations? Was it, or is it a little different than you thought it would be?
Yeah, so I wasn't really sure what to expect. I don't think I had any expectations coming in. I just think that working with the different departments is great, and the people I direct to, my bosses, they've been great at showing me the ropes, and just getting me started.
Awesome. So where are you from originally?
I'm from Fallenbell. It's up north past Cranberry. It's about an hour from Pittsburgh.
Way up north past Cranberry now.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, it's no one's ever heard of it. We always say there's more cows than people up in Fallenbell. So, but
was it a charming rural existence, quiet growing up?
Yeah, it was great. A lot of people are surprised by that because I live in the city now, but driving tractors and going on back roads and stuff, that was how I grew up.
And when other kids said, well, I'm going to grow up to be a farmer, or I'm going to grow up to be a policeman, fireman, or ball player, were you like, I'm going to grow up to be a graphic artist? Or did you have no idea?
No, I was always interested in art. I was drawing even as a kid. And once I took my first graphic design class in 9th grade in high school, I definitely knew that this was for me. Just the blend of drawing and colors and design, it definitely stood out to me as something I wanted to do.
Well, that's nice that young to have a sense of purpose, because at least when I was growing up, and maybe when you were too, there were a lot of people who couldn't figure out what the heck they wanted to do.
Yeah, I was super lucky. Like I said, I had a great graphic design teacher, and he really inspired me to pursue that further.
And then where did you go when you graduated from high school?
I went to Pittsburgh Technical College. It's out near Robinson in Oakdale. And I went there and got a degree and started my career as a graphic designer.
And that was off to the private sector. So I know you're married. How have you and your wife been with COVID?
Pretty good. We've trying to stay safe and wear a mask as much as possible. We were both working from home and beginning, and that was, yeah, it was great. Both busy on phone calls, telecommunicating, all those things.
So you never got
But
each other's nerves like some people who had to spend more time together than they wanted to.
no, we get along great. Yeah.
Awesome. And I know during our previous conversation when we were off the air, you mentioned to me you'd like to travel, and you guys honeymooned in Iceland.
Yeah, we went to Reykjavik, Iceland. It was a little wild, but you know, it's a beautiful country. I've never been before, and I definitely recommend it to everyone. The waterfalls, just, you know, the
So
town, it's beautiful.
the beauty of the landscape.
Oh yeah, definitely. There's like 7 different waterfalls to see, and there's hot springs. It's great.
And where else have you traveled?
A couple years ago, we took a trip to Paris, France. We were there for about a week, and yeah, we just love exploring, seeing the sights and taking everything in.
Was Paris, France as romantic as we're led to believe?
Yeah, I definitely could have spent more time there. Definitely ate a lot of chocolate croissants, and you know, just loved you know, walking around the back streets.
So Paris and Reykjavik, what's on the hit parade in the future?
So I think we're going to London soon. That should be fun. I've never been there before, but I'm looking forward to it.
Awesome. All right. And so do you have any hobbies?
Yeah, I love old Japanese cars. I have a Nissan and a Mazda. You know, I work on them, I tinker with them, and you know, even sometimes they get to see the track, so that's pretty fun.
A Mazda Miata?
Yeah, I have a Mazda Miata and a Nissan 240SX.
I had a girlfriend who had a Mazda Miata. I love driving that. Great handling, and I assume it's a convertible.
Yeah, they're all convertibles. Yep.
And how did you develop becoming pretty handy with cars?
My dad's like the most handy person I know. He's great at it. So I, you know, just got to work alongside him growing up, doing brakes, oil changes, that sort of shade cheery mechanic. And once I bought a house, it has a garage with it. Lucky enough to have one. So I just, you know, just watch YouTube videos and figure it out along the way. But it's been great.
Well, my dad was the least handy person I've ever met, and that's why I followed in his steps, and that's why I don't know how to
Right.
at all.
Yeah. But I'm always happy to teach people. And, you know, in my circle of friends, people come to me with car questions, or, you know, how do I fix this, or what car should I buy?
What can you remember? A recent request or question from somebody?
Yeah. So my brother-in-law had a exhaust, like a exhaust ting, like a rattle, and it ended up being a heat shield that I removed just because it was loose. So fixed it right up.
So do you have to fix everybody's car, all the families, and how time consuming is that?
I mean, I'm happy to help. You know, they help me when they can, so it's not so bad.
And your job for the city is part-time, and you don't have to go into it if you don't want to, but you have other part-time jobs as well, correct?
Yes. So I do freelance graphic design on the side, and yeah, but you know, when I'm here at the city, I'm totally focused and excited to be here.
Is that a product of the economy where a lot of people have to have several part-time jobs, or is that just something you chose to do because you like variety?
I guess a little of both. Yeah, I definitely like working on different projects. So being here and then having my own freelance clients definitely helps me, you know, get to a lot of different projects.
And then you're also a part-time wedding photographer. That must be interesting.
Yeah, so about 10 weekends a month, I second shoot for a company in Pittsburgh. And yeah, Saturdays you'll see me with some cameras at local wedding events.
Is that stressful because you really want to get it right because this is their magical day and you don't want to mess up?
It can be stressful depending on the schedule. you only have a couple seconds sometimes to get the shot. But I like it. It's another way to be creative, and you get to interact with people for all day essentially. So I enjoy that.
So you photograph, or depending on their wants, but you'll do the reception as well?
Yeah, so we're with them for until they get ready, until the last dance, the send off. So it's pretty long days, but I like it.
Are you sometimes looking at your watch and going, when the hell is this reception going to end?
Yeah, sometimes after certain reception songs. Yeah, it's just like, all right, like, I'm deaf, I'm tired, like, let's wrap this up. But no, they're pretty fun. Everyone's in a good mood, everyone's happy. It's nice to see people that are in love on their best days. So
Are people
it's nice.
Bands or DJs more these days?
I see DJs, but it is fun. Recently there was a band that did all 90s songs. They did all 90s covers. So I enjoyed that, definitely.
I'm a fellow Northsider myself. In fact, I'm speaking to you from my Northside apartment as we speak. How did you choose the North Side?
Yeah, so we looked at a couple different houses, and it's just great neighborhood. I'm in Marshall Shadeland, which is right up the hill from Manchester. And it was close to everything. It was the size house that we wanted, so we landed there.
Good for you. You have any? Well, you told me you have hobbies, or among your hobbies is fixing with cars. Any other hobbies?
I do the photography. I like to take photos when I travel. That's another big hobby of mine. Starting to get into some like hand lettering, some painting. That goes along with the design, the typography with graphic design.
Like on a canvas?
Canvas, or just papers, practicing hand strokes and letter forms. Yeah.
And would you recommend a career in government service?
Yeah, definitely. I think anytime you can, get involved, if it's volunteering part-time or full-time in the city, you should definitely take advantage of that.
Well, Justin, continued success. You're working in a variety of fields, and it sounds like you're busy all the time.
Yeah, busy. It keeps me out of trouble, as they say. So I'm happy to be here, and yeah, thanks for the time.
Awesome. Justin Cooper, thank you so much for joining us on City Talk. When we come back, you'll meet somebody whose job it is to enforce the Americans with Disabilities Act on City Talk in a moment. Welcome back to City Talk. Say hello to Hillary Roman, whose job it is to enforce the Americans with Disabilities Act. Hillary, welcome to City Talk.
Hi, thanks for having me.
So that is quite a responsibility. Could you remind us of some of the history of the landmark legislation and then tell us how you got involved?
Yeah, absolutely. So the Americans with Disabilities Act was signed into law in 1990. And it kind of just expounded upon a bunch of civil rights laws that we already had in place. But it was the one law that really set out that this was specifically to protect people with disabilities. And so it's really important, really a huge landmark, and also, kind of shocking sometimes that happened in 1990, that really wasn't that long ago. So it's an important law, and it's my privilege to be able to coordinate the Americans with Disabilities Act within the city. And just tiny correction, I can't actually enforce it. I am a coordinator, so it's really more about greasing the wheels.
All right, I stand corrected, and I'm glad you made that correction. So how do you go about helping others to enforce it, or seeing to it that compromises are made so that things are copacetic?
Yeah, 100% charm. No, I have to, it's really about relationships and having good relationships with people in the community and also good relationships with people internally in the city. Because what I'm tasked with doing, and this is commonly misunderstood, but I'm not really able to kind of work outside of the city. I'm mostly here to enforce Title II, not enforce, but coordinate Title II and make sure that all of our services, programs, and activities are accessible for people with disabilities. So a lot of times people will contact me and say, X shop or X, movie theater doesn't have a ramp or doesn't have this or that. And I will work with them and kind of help them to get to where they need to be. But that's kind of outside of my jurisdiction. So I really have to work internally in the city and make sure that I know who to call when we need some help on the inside.
Are there people who are not necessarily horrible scofflaws, but they literally just didn't know that they had to bring things up to code?
Yeah. So a lot of the problems are really due to, ignorance or just maybe not having the proper information. And so, the city tries to work with folks, external folks to kind of help bring them up to the correct code. In terms of internally, a lot of times it's things that are a little bit more gray area. Is it actually against the law? Kind of just like any lawyer is going to tell you, and I'm not a lawyer, but I work within the law. My whole job is based on the law. So it's really about how you would interpret it and how the DOJ might interpret it, because the Department of Justice is really my enforcing entity.
So how did you get involved with this rather complex state of affairs? But very necessary, but I assume it's no day at the beach.
Yeah, well, I mean, it is and it isn't. It's very rewarding, but I got involved with it because I have always worked in equity. So I had a background in gender studies and sexuality and, women's equity. And so that's always been really, really important to me. I went to law school and then dropped out because I really didn't want to practice law, but I loved policy. So I went to the Graduate School of Public and International Affairs at Pitt, and I got my master's in public policy and was lucky enough to be able to apply for and get this job. And it was right in my wheelhouse because it's equity, and I do have a background in disability work. A little bit through my mom, who has worked in the city of Pittsburgh for decades and decades with blind and low vision folks. So it was kind of something I was already pretty comfortable with and kind of knew some people.
And so your mom was a sort of a pioneer in this field, and then you followed along.
Yeah, she really was and is. She's still working, and she works with kids who have damage to their vision because of damage to their brain, not their eyes. And so I grew up kind of with other children with disabilities, and I'm pretty comfortable in that world.
How is compliance in the city of Pittsburgh? Are there miles to go before we sleep?
We can always do better. And, I always say this, and it's a cliche, but it's never been more true probably for any position that I have ever found or worked in, and I've had many jobs. What I do is, an inch deep and a mile wide. So I have to make sure that we are compliant in our, communications, our technology, our transportation, our city planning, our codes, our policing. Every department that we have has to meet the ADA. And so it's definitely, it's a huge challenge, and new things are always arising, but it keeps me on my toes. And so I really do like that.
Awesome. And how long have you been doing it?
Just 2 years. I had my 2-year work anniversary on September 9th.
So what specific department do you actually work for in the city?
I'm in the Department of City Planning, which is not intuitive necessarily, but we do find ADA coordinators in lots of places. They're most often found in like mayor's offices and such, but you will kind of find them all over the place because they do have to work so interdepartmentally that sometimes they'll just put them somewhere with the understanding that, this is the person you need to reach out to no matter what department you're in.
And what kinds of things do you work on other than wheelchair ramps, for example?
So many things. So I would say the thing that's taken up probably the most of my capacity, and it's starting to sort of die down now that we're, we've kind of got our operations together, but after the pandemic hit, all of our meetings, which were formerly mostly in person, right? So the way that the ADA coordinator would interact with that type of operation would be if somebody reached out because they were deaf or hard of hearing, needed an ASL interpreter, an American Sign Language interpreter, and I would make sure that we ordered one and had them there if they reached out as an accommodation, right? Because you don't need to have one if it's a 10-person meeting and no one there needs an interpreter. So now, because all of our board, commission, mayor's office, all of these meetings are online, they need to be accessible in the moment and for posterity, right? Because they're going to be on YouTube, they're going to be, available to people forever. And so they need to be accessible, from the get. So we've had to have interpreters, in every single meeting. So that's a big change in operations, and things like making sure that our communications are accessible, emergency communications, which we couldn't have really foreseen when I started in 2019, were going to be such a big deal. Have to make sure that we have our ASL interpreters there. And so, it's definitely been something that has taken up, like I said, kind of a lot of my capacity and kind of thinking about how we can maintain, inclusion and compliance in all of our communication. So it's way more than just ramps. And also DOMI, I work with DOMI a lot because transportation,
And that Department of DOMI stands for?
The Department of Mobility and Infrastructure. Yeah. So I work with them a lot because transportation issues are obviously something that affect our disability communities a lot.
Are some buildings so old and poorly set up that an argument can be made that they can't transition and so they don't have to? I ask that because I know of a club with an upstairs and a downstairs, steep stairs going up to the upstairs, and I don't think there's an elevator or a ramp anywhere. Yet they seem to be legal and they've been operating for a long time.
Yeah, so there's a there's a common misconception that that there's a grandfather clause, and that if you're an older building than 1990 when the ADA was signed into law, that you're protected under this grandfather clause. That's not the case. So what happens is any new buildings, as you're kind of implying, any new buildings have to immediately be accessible, but older buildings, whenever they undergo any kind of alteration, they have to be brought into compliance. They need to dedicate 20% of the money that they're spending into bringing their buildings into compliance. And so that's kind of how that works. It's sort of a piece by piece negotiation, more or less.
Gotcha. And so are people constantly reporting things that they think are violations?
Yes. So I do have access to the 311 system. And so you can put requests in under the ADA. They usually get rerouted other places like blocked sidewalks or something else. But yeah, there are many times that people will report non-compliance to me, like I said, of kind of Title III, which is businesses and public, private entities. When I say public, I mean places of public accommodation, not public as in public services. And so, like I said, I'll sort of try to work with them and letting them know that, again, I can't enforce it because, I don't have any legal jurisdiction to do that. But yeah, people kind of reach out to me for, everything under my boss is doing this, or my, family member is doing that. And so, yeah, I get all kinds of stuff, but I've learned a lot. It's helped me to kind of figure out, how I can be a useful resource to the community.
Where are you from originally?
I'm from Pittsburgh. I'm a Pittsburgh girl. I will say that I'm from the North Hills. So I went to Mars High School, which is might as well be Ohio, feels so far away. But I have lived in the city since I was 18. So I won't give away my age, but I've been here for decades. So I have lived in the city since I was a teenager. So I think I can claim it as my own. And, Pittsburgh region, I'm a Yinzer, proud of it. So.
All right. And what neighborhood have you chosen to live in?
I live in Hazelwood. I used to live in the Upper East End for a long, long time. And I bought a house in Hazelwood and just fell in love with it. So it's really great to live right next to the river.
Oh, I was going to say, what's cool about Hazelwood, but you just said, yeah.
Yeah, it's great. I live super close to the river, and the trail system, which I didn't have as great of access to when I lived in Friendship, is just amazing. Just been biking all over the place and having.
Yeah, you have those electric bicycles?
I do. Yeah, I have this electric bicycle. It's one of the cheaper models, but I am obsessed with it. It's super, super fun because obviously over here in Hazelwood, we have like 8%, 9% slopes. So, on a normal bike, there's absolutely no way that I could ride up that even on my best day. And so it's great because it's a pedal assisted bike and I can just zip right up. It's pretty amazing.
Would you recommend a career in government service?
I would, I mean, I don't think it's for everybody, but for me, it's really rewarding. Like I said, I've worked many different jobs, but for me, it's the most rewarding kind of work that you can do, especially when you're doing equity work. It's something that makes you feel really fulfilled and happy when you can help somebody out.
And you mentioned you've worked several other jobs. Can you give us some examples?
Oh my goodness. I did psychological research for many years. I bartended for 4 years at a brewery while I was in graduate school. I was a camp counselor. I mean, I went to school like 4 times, so like way overly educated. I have a really interesting background, but it kind of everything that I've done has sort of ended up helping me in this job. So it's somehow all cosmically sort of worked out.
What is psychological research?
So I worked at, under the School of Pharmacy, I worked at a place called CEDAR, the Center for Education and Drug Abuse Research. And so we would have subjects come in from all over Pittsburgh, and we followed them from 10 to 30 and just tracked their progress on all kinds of issues, substance abuse, mental health issues, all kinds of issues. And so it was really, really interesting work. And that's definitely another thing that's helped me in my job right now.
And how was being a camp counselor? Were there just some awful kids?
So it was Boys and Girls Club. So they actually came in from the city, and it was great because it was sort of, it was a different group of people from, the people that I went to high school with and people who had a whole different, range of experiences. And I worked with like the 5 and 6 year olds. So they were adorable and they were so much fun. So yeah, we really, I had a great time.
What did you roast marshmallows? Did you actually go?
We did that, served a lot of hot dog lunches. Yeah, basically just like walking kids who are from the city, walking them through the woods. And one time, there's this guy who has all these predatory birds. I don't know. It's, North Hills stuff, just wildlife and stuff.
Good enough. All right. Well, thank you so much for joining us, Hillary. Sounds like you really like your job.
I do. It's, it's very, very fulfilling and it's a pleasure.
And you anticipate staying with it for a while?
I hope so. Yeah, I hope to.
Yeah, I guess we're all, you never know about the status of any of us at any one time, but yeah.
Never know.
But my psychic vibe is that you'll be there for many, many years. So thank you again, Hillary Roman on City Talk.
Thanks for having me.
And that is City Talk for this edition. We will see you next time.